Hi, I'm Pav Brian, and you're watching my video on how eating healthy affects your cycling performance. Now, it might sound really obvious, but it's an area which we tend to get, wrong. I mean, at least sometimes we'll get it wrong, and there's a lot of misinformation around there. I'm going to give you some background information, exactly what nutrition is. I'm going to bust some myths. I'm going to give you also some information around if you need to lose weight, and the mentality around eating too. So we're going to just start with a super brief introduction. It's going to be not that detailed at all about what nutrition is. Now, for me, there's two really key areas of nutrition. That's your micronutrients, which are your fat, your protein, and your carbohydrates. And then there's your micronutrition, which are, typically they're your plants, they're your chemicals, your vitamins, your electrolytes, stuff like that, which are really crucial as well. Just the macros tend to be all about fuel. Now, protein obviously it's typically not used for fuel, but it can be. But the main thing about protein is it's like your building block, made up of amino acids, and it's going to help you repair. So it is important to eat enough. And fat can be a fuel. It predominantly is like a fuel, especially at low intensity. But you need to be eating fat as well, to make sure that stuff like your joints are working well and your brain is functioning too. And then obviously carbohydrate. Brain and body's preferred source of fuel, provided you're not doing like a ketogenic diet. Glucose is your body's preferred fuel source. So I always like to compare these, with a car. Our body's with a car, right? So your macros are typically the fuel that you put in there, the gas, the petrol, whatever you want to call it. Right, now your micros, which are almost exclusively from plants, you can get really good micronutrients from organ meat. Personally, can't stomach that. I'm plant-based anyway, but if you're in a ketogenic diet, you probably are having to eat some organ meat around leafy greens and stuff, because you're obviously not eating a high amount of carbohydrates. So the point is the micronutrition. Now these are your little chemicals, and these are what I think is, or what I compared to, the oil in your car, right? So you could put the most premium grade fuel in your car. If you forget to put oil in it, your car's not going to run that well. And it's exactly the same with your body. You could eat super clean sources of fuel, but if you neglect your micronutrition, you're not going to run as well. Your body's not going to run as well, of course, with cycling. So that's why I'm always talking about, and a big thing for me, 5 a day is ridiculous. It's so low. Even for normal human beings, 5 a day is so low. And again, I've written blogs and I've studied this. There's a lot to do with the nutrient density compared to half a century ago. I'm not going to go into it today, but again, check out my blog. Check out, if I got time to do it, I'll do a video on it about that. It's super interesting. It's a real eye opener, and it will make you think about where you get your food from and what you're actually eating. So for me, what I tend to do is I tell my athletes is 5 a meal. Most people are like, oh, really, 5 portions? A portion's the size of your fist. So yeah, there's quite a bit going on there. Now I'm going to do a video. It's going to be on my YouTube probably at some point of how you could get that every meal. Seriously, it's super easy. It doesn't have to be challenging at all. The challenge is when you're trying to do this around eating a lot of junk food, because if you eat at McDonald's, you're not getting any. Forget that lettuce in that Big Mac's, nothing, doesn't count. But if you can home cook more and you can pick better restaurants, you are going to find this better. So 5 a meal for athletes. You want 15 a day. If you can get more, fantastic. There's no risk to overdosing on these micronutrients. Your body can't eat enough of that. I mean, it's a different factor if you're going to sort of supplement. I don't really recommend supplementation. It's not as good as food, but there are some situations where you might supplement. If you've got a known deficiency, you might take something. There are opportunities. Supplements aren't as good as food, but they can be really convenient. So, I touched on it a little bit there. The quality of your food is probably the most important thing here, And for me, I don't necessarily think that organic is the best for you to go to. What you want to be looking for is more how quickly it's picked from the field to get to your plate. So that's number one important factor about what you put in your mouth, like whatever the fruit and veg is. If it's not organic, but it's local, and you know it's local, so you've been to the farmer's market, talked to the farmer, they've picked it, yeah, and then you're going to eat it super quick, that means that it's picked a much better time in that plant. You know, like think about a banana when you go to the supermarket. You know, sometimes they're all like super green. You know, they've been picked. They've come for, you know, potentially thousands of miles. So you know they've been taken off that plant ages ago. And you know, as soon as they're off that plant, the nutrients are no longer developing because they need the soil. You need the soil, the water, and everything. The plant needs to be growing for it to be nutrient dense. So, you know, that's why local is really important, you know, and finding somewhere, like if you can grow your own, like whether if you've got a garden, fantastic. If you can't, if you haven't got a garden, look at aeroponics, hydroponic systems. You know, seriously, controlling that is really good. And I'm not going to do the whole scaremongering thing that I do on my other blogs about this. But seriously, it's really good. Important to get quality. So, you know, if you can get local and organic, that's great. If it's going to be one of the two, local for me. You know, consider frozen. Frozen's also really good because potentially like what they're going to be doing is waiting for it to be ready, and they're going to flash freeze it. They're freezing that within 24 hours. So it's pretty much exactly at the right time for it to be picked. So it should have the most nutrient density, and you know, frozen food, yeah, it's great. So you should be fine. You know, it's also usually cheaper, obviously easier to store. It's not going to go off in your freezer, unlike those bananas which you probably got in the kitchen that are looking a bit iffy, right? Let's talk about some myths. I'm going to bust some myths, right? And this is always really funny because some people get it, some people just get confused, and I get why you get confused. It's so easy with all of the noise to not really understand what's going on, especially when people are telling you, you know, that if this diet, you know, if you're on a ketogenic diet, or if you're on, you know, vegan diet, you're on anything like that, you know, it should work for everybody, and that's just not true. You know, it's so hard to have that generalistic outlook about one specific diet. I mean, we can look at our DNA to only understand that actually some of us were brought, you know, genetically were part of an ancestry which was, you know, predominantly kind of keto, right? Because, you know, during the winter, you're probably not getting any plants and vegetables and grains that far back because, you know, you didn't have the storage techniques, you know, the farming techniques. So you were eating meat all the time, you know, and over like, you know, hundreds of thousands of years, you know, your gut is going to be a bit better at digesting that. But you know, also there's the mentality around, will this diet work for you? You know, if you're doing a keto diet which is super restrictive, you know, it doesn't appeal to me. So if I was to try and do keto, it's probably not going to have the same results as for someone who, you know, gets it and wants to do it. So, you know, I think that you have to have that buy-in, and you have to have that trust about what you're going to do is actually going to get those results. Because if you don't believe it's going to work, guess what? It isn't going to work. All right, so another big one for me, you know, healthy, that term healthy that they put on, that, you know, manufacturers, food manufacturers can put on stuff, you know, it doesn't mean it's healthy, right? You know, honestly, the only true healthy food is the stuff that, you know, doesn't come in a package, no wrapper at all. You understand what's in the ingredients. If it isn't, you know, like if it's not just fruit and vegetables or grains or something like that, or meat from the meat counter, you know, whatever you're eating. I really agree with, if you don't understand the ingredients, you probably shouldn't be eating it. Or if there's more than 7 ingredients or even a few ingredients, probably shouldn't be eating that too. You know, I talk about a lot about that accurately gauging your commitment levels. Again, it's a great topic I love talking about. So I'm not going to be stupid enough to suggest that you're going to eat like a monk all the time, because you're just going to slip up, right? You're only human, and you want to have some enjoyment. But ultimately, like the closer to perfection you can get without chasing perfection, the better you can be with your nutrition, the better your recovery is going to be, the better that your performance is going to be. So the next one for me is, you know, and we seem to be moving away from this, but you know, when I first started talking about nutrition, there was so many people that would still believe that fat makes you fat, and it's just not true. I mean, fundamentally, if you did eat so much fat that, you know, you could put on that weight, it's, you know, it's calories in, calories out in some respect. But typically, you know, fat isn't the culprit here. For most people, it's a diet high in sugar that's going to put that weight on. It's really easy. Sugar's super addictive. You know, similar sort of response in your brain to most, you know, illegal drugs. It's very easy, and it's, you know, it tastes amazing. And you know, that's where that culprit is. So fat gets a bad rep because of that. And ultimately, as I said at the top of this video, you do need fat to survive. So you can't cut that out. Even if you're going to do like a high carbohydrate diet, you're going to need some good healthy fats in there to make sure that your body is functioning well. Okay, so here's another one, calories. People always talk about a calorie being the same no matter where it comes from. That's total bull. Like, absolutely. If I imagine like you went out and you ate, a diet, you ate all your calories from plants, maybe some meat, and it was really super clean. The calories might say, just throwing the number up, 2,000 a day, and you did that. Imagine then replacing that with donuts, McDonald's or something like that. You're not going to function the same, absolutely not. So no, calories are not equal. And ultimately, check out what a calorie actually is, because it's not even necessarily consistent or relevant to our bodies. But I'll let you Google that one. Okay, so another one I'm just going to briefly touch on is that you only need to hydrate with water, especially, or rehydrating with water after training. And it's just not true. There are electrolytes, especially if you're a heavy sweater. So I definitely recommend you taking a little look and having a bit of mindfulness around the amount that you sweat. Now, I love the guys at Precision Hydration. I've been working with them since, they were a really small company. Now they're huge. They're doing amazing stuff, and they do some sweat testing, whether it's remote based or in person, and I really recommend you trying that out. But let's just say you can't get there at the moment. Just think about times when you've trained hard, maybe indoors, outside, and have you got any salt deposits around your body, on your clothing? Most of us, yes. Some of us, like myself, are really heavy, like super heavy sweater, loads of sodium coming out, just like the main thing coming out. So of course you need to supplement that sodium back in, otherwise that's when you start to get some issues. Now, typically the other electrolytes you can eat enough with your food, so you don't need to worry about them, but just focus on making sure that you do replenish water, but you also replenish your sodium losses too. So let's just say you're now actually looking at implementing a new diet. I'm not going to talk about all the specific diets. It's pointless. There's so many, and it's going to be one that you find that is relevant, and you like the sound of. You're going to start doing it. So the minimum time you're going to do anything for is 2 weeks, because it's going to take a while for your body to respond to that, and you're only going to change one thing at a time, because the problem is. And this is what I do with all my new clients. I always say to them, let's get the training done, especially if they're new to structured training. Then we'll look at your nutrition. That's not to say that, I'm not telling you to do certain things, but we're not going to put a proper nutrition strategy in place, for at least 2 weeks, because I want to make sure that, your body gets used to the structured training. It doesn't get, super fatigued, which can happen, especially, if I don't have enough information about the client at the start. And I want to make sure that body adapts and gets settled into that routine, so that we can go, oh yeah, that session didn't work too well, you responded to this, blah, 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 and everything like that. Then we add the nutrition in, because then we can start to look at, and pinpoint exactly what is working and what could be improved. And that's the same thing with your diet. That same thing, right? So if you're going to start doing a vegan, keto, or Atkins, whatever you're going to do, right? You're going to do it for 2 weeks, and you're going to try and make sure you're going to change one thing. So if you're going to have to change something, like your sleep pattern, or you're traveling, your training is going to change from maybe like a part of your periodization in your annual plan, it's probably not a great idea to try something new then. It's better to have this foresight early on, and then plan it in advance. And the last thing that's super important is, that getting help with this is going to be something that is going to take a lot of stress away from you. It's going to stop you being biased, and it's going to be the reason why ultimately you're actually going to be successful in this. So if you're watching this and you're like, I don't know how to fit it around my training, don't know where to start, ultimately you can send me a message. There's forms on my website for a free 15-minute consultation. Love to have a chat with you. If you want ongoing coaching, it's fantastic, but if you think you just need someone to have a little look in once or twice a month, I can sort that too. I have retainer packages where you can just pay for a certain amount of time a month. Ultimately, if you've got something super unique, that's where you might want a qualified nutritionist. And I know loads, and I can recommend one that's right for you too. So finally, wrapping up this video, we're going to talk a little bit about losing weight, because it's something that I guess at least three quarters of my clients come to me and they're like, actually I'm not at my ideal weight. I think I could lose a bit, and I always struggle. Maybe there's someone that gets to a certain weight and then can't lose anymore, or maybe it fluctuates a lot. They go up and down with their weight, yo-yoing their weight, right? And there's so many reasons why that could be, but again, this is where a coach can really help out and be absolutely instrumental and valuable in dealing with this. So the biggest problem is a lot of people seem to think that ultimately, and it is kind of a case of calories in, calories out, but there's so much more to it. So people tend to think that if they eat less and they train more, they're going to lose weight. And you might see some weight loss initially, almost certainly you will, but ultimately, it shouldn't be too aggressive. It should be a slow process. And there's theories like settled weight theory, where your body's going to happily lose about 10% of its weight before it starts to realize or panic, and start to crave more food. Maybe it's going to hold on to the weight, it's going to store it in different places, or even cannibalize muscle because it's panicking and not going to eat. And what we want to do there is lose that 10% and then stop for 2 to 3 months to allow your body to start to adapt to being at that weight. And then it will settle into that weight and you can start to lose weight again. So, it does, for us humans, we love that instant gratification. And, that's why people tend to do crazy diets, crash dieting and stuff like that. Honestly, if you're that type of person, you're probably the type of person that responds to or recognizes the yo-yoing. You might lose a load of weight and then it might come back on and stuff like that. And, ultimately that is a shift in your mindset that you're going to have to deal with, because if you constantly want to see quick results, quick weight loss, I think you're always going to be disappointed. I think you're always going to yo-yo back up, because ultimately your body's going to start craving food. It's going to hold on to weight. You're going to be miserable. Your performance is going to drop off. There's going to be so many things, and you will end up cracking and just eating a ton of pizza. Again, that kind of factors into that willpower. One of the worst sessions for me with my clients to prescribe for losing weight is that tempo threshold kind of range. And that honestly is usually where you see the biggest calorie deficit. But for me, in my experience, and I'm probably going to get some bad comments on this, ultimately, I think that you end up emptying your glycogen stores around your body too much, and then your body starts to scream for carbs, and that's the problem. You do that for too long, and ultimately you are going to crack, because the cravings are going to be so bad, so intense. So I do recommend sort of either going super high intensity or sticking low, like a polarized sort of training around that. I mean, it obviously needs to tie into the training that you're doing, which can make it super complicated too. And it makes it even more complicated if you've only got like 5 to maybe 8 hours, 10 hours a week training, where actually, doing zone 2 work or less in a great amount isn't going to give you that benefit anyway. So actually we talk about then doing some more threshold training, tempo threshold, which is the problem, because if you're trying to lose weight, you're going to empty your glycogen stores reasonably quickly, depending on exactly how long and how intense you're doing that and how much you're eating. And that's when those willpower is going to crack. It's unrealistic expectation to think that will all work. And the final thing for me is your mentality around eating. Now, check out the blog. There's a load of steps in here, loads of little tips on, how to do that. I mean, I really, really enjoy that, or I think that they're one of the best tools for being mindful around your eating is to super slow down. And if you need like an exercise to deal with, especially if you're around a table or you're at a meal, try and be the person who finishes your meal last. Or eat slow, like chew it like 40 times until it's like mush, and then eat it, and really be grateful for what you're putting in your body. Like, really try and sit in that moment and actually enjoy your food. Once you start doing all of this, it sounds like it's just like woo-woo, it sounds like total crap, but when you really focus on all of these things, you start to eliminate a lot of the stress that comes with losing weight. And that's a really big problem. The amount of stress that you place, that that want to lose weight, actually makes losing weight really challenging, because fundamentally in our genetics and our DNA, stress is there, and to warn us of getting eaten by a bear, or whatever it is that we used to get eaten by, especially as well during the colder months where there might not be food. And that's why we would hold on to those fat stores. And similarly, if you're super stressed all the time, your body just isn't going to release the right hormones to start breaking down fat stores to release them for energy. So, you know, again, I always talk about meditation. I love meditation. It's changed my life, and it changes the lives of the athletes that, you know, buy in and commit to it. If you're not sure where to get started, like Headspace, Calm and Balance, 3 great apps, all have free trials. And Balance, at the time of me recording this, is free for a year, which is an amazing offer. Like I can't stress how much, like, if you actually commit to this, just 10 minutes a day, you will see amazing life benefits, which will, you know, transform your cycle into. So, you know, I'm going to leave that. There's loads of resources on my website and on my YouTube channel about, you know, meditation as well. But that wraps it up, you know. So hopefully you've really enjoyed the information I've contained or I've given you within this short video. If you're on my YouTube channel, like, please leave me a comment about what you liked. If you have any questions, I'll try and make sure I answer them. If you want to see like this in more depth, or there's a certain part of this video that you really would like expanded, I can do some more around that. Definitely share it with your friends. It means a lot to me when, you know, I see people come to me and they say, hey, my friend shared this video, it was fantastic, blah blah blah, you know. And you know, as I said to you before, if you do feel like you need help, let's have a 15-minute chat. Let's talk about your needs and look to see whether coaching is right for you. We need to be a good fit for each other. And you know, if you're not, or you need something a bit more affordable, you know, I have worked with some amazing coaches and nutritionists throughout my time as a coach, and I can recommend one to you. So again, if you're on the website, that's super easy to find. You'll be able to get a consultation booked, send me a message, and make sure you sign up to, you know, my newsletter with either your number or your email address. We're not going to spam you at all. It's just going to allow me to sort of send you a little text or an email when I'm dropping a new blog or video. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. It's always a pleasure to talk. So reach out to me if you have any questions.